What is up, everybody? Welcome back. It is 2024. Kick your shoes off, grab you something cold to drink. We have got a brand new episode of Talk. So, cheers, boys. Garage beer. What's everybody drinking tonight? What you guys got?
I got Nacho Lagre from a local brewery. They are awesome. It is Backstory Brewery out of Sulphur Springs, Texas.
Love it. I love it.
I got a little.
What you got, Matt?
Loose Cannon.
Loose Cannon
from a Maryland brewery here. So
nice.
Keeping it local.
I'm chugging this fine garage beer from the folks at Garage Beer. It's a beer flavored beer. The garage door is always open is their motto. So check these guys out. Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Ohio. They are super cool people. Got a chance to talk to them this week again. And beer flavored beer. I mean, how can you go wrong with beer flavored beer?
Yeah.
That's the way to do it right there.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So we got a fun episode tonight for all you folks at home. We've got a little different setup that we're working with tonight. These guys have had about a week to think about some of these questions that I've got in store for them tonight. But the preface or the baseline for our episode tonight is rigging a new kayak. And we're talking like we're going from the ground up. We're taking it home from the store. She still got the plastic on her. This Jackson kayak is brand new, ready to go. So let's get Matt Campbell Fishing. You're talking to us. You're here, bro.
Hey man, welcome. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Hey, happy to have you here, man. So we've got Matt Campbell, we've got Joshua Evans, and we've got Lance McWhorter, all previous offenders of the Doc Talk program. So stoked to have you guys back. Definitely thanks for being here. But let's jump right on into this thing. So, like we said, you've got that brand new Jackson kayak of your choice. You can pick any kayak out of the lineup that you want to rig in this conversation. What do you do? I mean, a lot of folks anymore, they go to the store, they see what they want. They've already done some online shopping, some different things, and they've kind of got an idea, but they don't really know what to do yet. This is their first kayak. What would you tell that person? How would you set it? Like, what's the first thing you do with a brand new kayak?
Man, you gotta take it on the water, paddle it, or pedal it, depending on which version you get. I think you need to understand, how you feel in that kayak. If you want to, take one rod, a couple of bags of baits, do a little fishing, but you need to get an idea how that thing's going to balance and how it's paddling or pedaling for you before you start going crazy with rigging, because you could rig the whole thing out and figure out that everything you did is all in the wrong place because it's not how you want to operate in that kayak. So if you're new, go fun fishing a couple of days. Catch a few fish, see how it does, get a feel for it I'd say do that before you put anything on it other than the paddle holder.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Matt on that. One of my favorite things is really kind of rigging for functionality. And the only way you know how to do that is if you spend some time in the boat without anything on it. Okay, get it out there. See, where your arm reach is and where everything would be convenient. or maybe where you'd want like a motor control or a rod holder or a cup, where you think you might want your graphs. And you're going to sit in your kayak and visualize where you want all these things to be, right? And visualizing it when it's fresh out the plastic in your garage, that's one thing. But once you get it on the water and you really feel like, okay, if I lean this way, how's my boat going to react? Can I reach to the front of the cockpit area? How's reaching behind me go? All these things will play major factors into how you rig it so that, one, you're comfortable while you're out there on the water, and it's the most functional as far as, fishing comfortably and being able to access your tools while on the water. Or if you're just fun paddling even, right? You want to know where your lunch bag or your cooler is going to be on the kayak, and how can I best access that? And the only way to do that is spend a little time on the water without anything on it. And then the other thing I would suggest is, once you do kind of have a good idea, I've always been kind of an advocate of not drilling too much in my boats. I think the last 2 boats I've had would be the first ones I really put a bunch of holes in. But it also, if you don't, hard install everything like your electronics or where your battery is going to be, things like that, you still have the ability to move it around your boat for weight distribution, for accessibility, all those different factors. And if you decide you don't like it, you haven't hard installed it, you can move it somewhere else,
Man, just to echo, I mean, both Matt and Josh, they covered, a whole lot of stuff. And I think one of the most important things is, like what Josh said, is that geometry of that boat it's different from boat to boat, So once you get it, you can visualize it all you want. But so you get out there and you sit in that seat, throw a rod around a little bit, see which way you're leaning, see how that boat reacts. Every single boat, I mean, there's no such thing as a dry kayak, and scupper plugs and things like that we can get into in a little bit. But, you're going to have little wet spots. You're going to have, depending on how much you weigh, where your seat's comfortable, you may have a little bit of water in the back, or, when you get to slouching in the midday, you may have a little spot that pulls up a little water in one of the sides. And those are real important things to pay attention to with a brand new boat. Even going from model year to model year, if, the company's changed anything, it can completely change the way that boat rides in the water. So it's one of those things, unless it's a boat that you're really, really familiar with and that the manufacturer hasn't made any changes since you had your last one, 1,000% get that thing out there and paddle around, pedal it around, do both. I mean, because there's a lot of situations where we're not going to use the pedals. I get in that thick grass or hyacinth or things like that, and I'm not using a pedal drive. I'm using a long paddle and dragging myself through that stuff a lot of the time. So if I put my graphs in the wrong space, they're in the way. So, I mean, it's just really kind of important to get in there and pay attention to it. And especially like Josh said, drilling holes. So many people are just a fan of grabbing a boat and drilling holes in it. And, man, that can really mess you up. Especially, you get in one of those spots that collects a little bit of water, and that's where you chose to, put a grommet and run your, twin 8-gauge wires for your trolling motor through. That could collect a lot of water. Those things are water resistant. They're not waterproof, so being real thoughtful about how you rig is huge. I'm really, really glad that we're doing this one tonight and breaking down some myths and things like that. And we got the crew that can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got this new kayak. We're at the paddle shop. We've really not quite left yet. What are some of the off the shelf secondary products that you think you would tell a new angler to purchase for rigging that new kayak, just out of the gate, some of the standard things?
Man.
I mean, I would start with a paddle holder, and I really like the Yak Attack, the double header. It's dual function. You can get a paddle in there, but you can also use the mount spot where it goes into your track. You can later set it up so you can put a graph on there or put some other secondary accessory on there. A good paddle holder. Those are nice too because they got the little bungees, because you never know. All of us have had a paddle fall off a kayak and then we're going, trying to figure it out where it is. I would say a paddle holder would be one of the number one things for me. One of the first accessories I'd tell anybody to grab.
Yeah, I would say a paddle holder. I like the rotor grips. I put them on extensions on arms and kind of, very similar to the double header, but the spacing is a little wider, and I prefer that for me personally. But aside from that, maybe a crate, either that or some type of like an anchoring system. Maybe like an anchor wizard would probably be something that I would grab right off the shelf.
Yeah, I think that definitely a paddle holder, the one that I always grab, and it really works well with the tri-track that you find on Jackson kayaks, because you can really put them wherever you want. Yak Gadget makes those rod and paddle stagers that allow you to clip a paddle down, and it'll hold a couple of rods in there too. It's kind of nice, especially when it's brand new and you're not really knowing, maybe you're going with a new crate. You don't know where your crate's going. You got a spot where you can stick a rod if you don't want to keep putting them in and out of the horizontal rod stagers in the boat. Those work really, really well. Obviously out of the gate, your 360 light is something that everybody's going to need. Grab that when you get your boat. If we're taking it out for the first time or two, we're probably not going to have the motor on it yet. Maybe we will, but nav lights, or any, I like having the button lights just because they're smaller and they don't get smashed as much. Just really 360 light, all your safety equipment, everything like that. And kind of get a good idea while you're at the shop. Talk with those people. It's like, I own a shop. We'll sit there and we'll talk to you about where we can put the basics. Your survival code, a dry box for or dry bags for a spare set of clothes, things like that. Just kind of the basics that you want to have in there when you get going, just to one, be legal, and two, be safe.
Actually, to add on to what Lance is saying, one, knowing what your local state regulations are, so that you are going out safely from the get-go and within whatever those laws and rules might be. Another thing, shops like Lance's, they do rigging and other stuff like that. When you buy the boat from them, don't necessarily have them rig it right away, but let them know, hey, I'm going to take it out, kind of get a feel for it. And if you want to help me with rigging after the fact, then I'll come back and give you some return business. That's always a good idea. Gives you a chance to really know where you want to put everything. And when you go back in, you can tell Lance, hey, my arm is, 3 inches, 4 inches shorter than yours. So instead of having the graph way up here, I need it back a little bit further, right? Little subtleties like that are going to help you have the boat set up the way you want it if you're not setting it up 100% yourself. But also it's going to make sure that the shop can ensure that you're set up and happy when you walk out the door.
Yeah, that is great advice. So we've covered, some of those first accessories and different things like that. And I think talking to the paddle shop is probably one of the best pieces of advice that you can give anybody, because there's a wealth of knowledge there. And, to have that at your fingertips so that you can walk out of there with the right paddle, with, the different things that you need is going to be, huge. It really will be. So with that being said, what are you've taken this kayak out? You've seen how it performs. You've got a few roto grips. You've got a nice new shiny paddle. You've got a crate. What are we looking at? What is the next step in rigging this kayak? What's step 3?
I would say probably for a lot of folks, if you've got the basics on there, a lot of folks are then going to be, if they're trying to do anything more than shallow fishing, probably looking at, a fish finder to help them find depth, find structure, catch more fish. You're probably getting into that tier of rigging, which means you're going to start running wiring. You're going to worry about batteries. That's probably the next, I guess, kind of the next level of things. What do you guys think?
Lance? Lance frozen? All right. Well, for me, I'd say, yeah, definitely looking at your graphs, your batteries, motors, right? Motor mounts, incorporating. Oh man, it's James McBeef. I'm sorry. Hey, James.
What's up, James?
Incorporating like a power pole or an anchoring system off the back in conjunction with a motor. A lot of different factors here when you're looking at that next stage in rigging. Again, weight distribution is huge, especially if you're running a motor, because you want to make sure that you're maximizing, that motor's capabilities in conjunction with the hull shape and the weight distribution in your boat. There's a lot of factors there. That's one of those times where if you are new and not a less seasoned or less tenured kayak angler, reaching out to shops like Lance's or Delaware Paddle Sports or so many other different Jackson dealers out there, and kind of having them help walk you through that part, because that's a really important piece to that puzzle, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And like we kind of, I think we skipped one little portion that's kind of important, and it's something that we do, ETX Paddle Sports. The next step for me, when we start putting in crates and we start putting in, coolers and, tackle boxes or bags or things like that, once we've taken it out and gotten comfortable with it, we get that stuff in there. The one thing though that I see a ton of people skip over is securing that initial loadout. It's like, once we get a crate in there, how are you going to keep that crate in there if you flip? How are you going to keep those rods in the crate if you flip? How are you going to keep a cooler in there? How are you going to keep tie downs? I don't know about other shops, but I know at ours we do. Like, I've got a really cool, industrial grade sewing machine that we make like rigging straps and stuff like that for, that will tie down all your gear. I know Yak Attack makes a bunch of really cool straps and buckle attachments that we use a lot. But I mean, really thinking about securing that stuff, because, and also kind of when you're testing that boat, a lot of times with people in a new rig, I'll tell them to go out and flip it when it's empty too. Like if the weather's nice or whatever, go flip it, go get back in it, man. Because, really the time to learn how to get back in your boat is not when you're in the water and it's cold. I went in last year. I got swamped by a boat at Hartwell, and I got flipped. And thank goodness all my stuff was secure. It's like when I flipped that boat over, I was like, man, everything's going to be gone. And I mean, I still had rods in the crate. The crate was right where I left it. It was like everything was tied down, and it was like, all right, cool. So it's like, that's a really important step in there too, is to get with your dealer or just kind of really do a little research, get some good tie downs, and figure out how you can secure that stuff in a really efficient manner. Because, a lot of us, even fun fishing, us tournament guys that are out there, we're rigging these boats, we're setting these boats up constantly in the dark, in the cold, in the rain, so having a system that really just, fast X buckles or little shock cord tie downs and things like that you can really do without being able to see very well and do it quickly is a really important step that I'd add on to that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree any more with you, Lance. It's no fun chasing a fully loaded black pack that's half full of water and full of tackle boxes down the river. They do float. They do float, but you'd rather not have to chase them down.
I think on top of Lance talking about tie downs, one of the, especially with these kayaks nowadays, as big and wide as most of them are, even, a good chunk of the recreational kayaks, a good, a lot of us call them a drag rope. You've got that where you can pull it around on the dock or pull it up on the shore, whatever. I leave one whenever I go out. I have one tied to the front of my boat at all times. It just loops around the front handle. But something like that, if you flip the kayak, to be able to pull that off the front and put it on a handle and use that for leverage to flip that kayak back over, it's a $20 or $30 piece, but it could end up being the major difference in your day.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I add one more? I want to add one more thing, actually. Yeah. I think Christian Gervais, it was in the comments, and said, get the best paddle you can afford. I cannot scream that enough. I still have my very first Bending Branches Sunrise paddle. I got it for like $50 off my buddy Matt Baden, and it's a great paddle, right? But as I've progressed, I started getting hand fatigue, and the longer you're out there, people go to Dick's Sporting Goods and they'll grab the cheapest paddle they can, or the one that came with their kayak, and it's aluminum, and they think, oh, this is great, and by midday they've got hand cramps or shoulder fatigue. The second I actually upgraded my paddle and went to the best paddle I could, which is a Benny Branch's Angler Pro Carbon, let me tell you, good Lord, it's like literally the weight of your arms, and that's it. You don't feel like you have a paddle in your hand. And the ability to go longer throughout the day without that fatigue setting in is great, especially if you were to flip, right? Because now all that fatigue that would have been there with that cheaper, heavier paddle, now you have that energy that you can now utilize to self-rescue, flip your boat back over, chase down your gear if you didn't secure it properly, like Lance said. These are things that folks will say, oh God, why would I spend $300-400 on a paddle, right? But yeah, well, I mean, you're brand new to the sport. I get it. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, this will do the same thing. It still pushes water. But if you hold two of them side by side, and if you ever see me out of the water, I'll let you use mine. It's a matter of, you can put them side by side. You have a wider blade, a lighter overall paddle. The amount of water it pushes is more water. I mean, the list of benefits to getting a better paddle is astronomical. And you won't really notice it or know it until you actually try it, and then you'll understand.
Yeah. I like Snell's comment right here.
I was say, and a longer paddle than you would think that you need to. When we get in these fishing boats that have higher seating, I think the charts say that I should be around, being 5'10". I think they say that I need about a 230 or 240, and I mean I run I run the 60. I mean I run a big paddle, and it's because you get that angle and you get to digging around and pushing. But yeah, I mean it's.
So I'm a huge fan of kayak.
It's me.
I was like, yo, who's that?
Yeah, I was like,
I'm hitting buttons that I'm not supposed to be hitting. I'm scrolling and looking at questions.
Good comment here from Dell Patton in there. It says, you don't buy a fully loaded truck with a 3-cylinder engine.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
It's a great analogy, Dell.
When I tell people never cheap out on motorcycle helmets or handguns or bulletproof vests, why would you cheap out on a paddle? That's your life, that's and if you get in a lot of places, like I said earlier, you're getting a lot of grass, you're getting a lot of cover and things like that. A lot of times I'll have that paddle in my hand when I'm fishing.
So paddle's important. We've kind of covered all the low-lying basics, but let's back up. I know Josh has already kind of alluded to this, but let's talk about the fish finder portion of this thing. You're new to the sport, and I feel like you've got your kayak, you've got a crate, you've got some rods and reels, you've got your baits, you've got a nice paddle. Everything coming up to the next phase is, man, I got to pick the right fish finder. Boys, there is a plethora of fish finders on the market. They come the size of our phones, and they come the size of our tablets and beyond. They come, I mean, there's all kinds of them. There's different brands. There's so many things. How does a new angler know where to start to select a graph? What's the best advice that you could give them?
I would say, first and foremost, don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses. Okay, everybody's worried like, oh, they have forward-facing sonar, they have this, they have a 12-inch screen. So what? Like, what are you going to use it for? How is it functional to you, right? So do you only need it so you can see, structure in the water or water temps? You don't need to go buy, the 126 SV with the, live scope and all that. You don't need that. It's going to be what you're going to need it for. If you want, you can get a unit that you can upgrade to those types of things once you see if you like it. But again, that goes to talking to buddies that are out there kayak fishing, talking to shops, seeing if maybe they have units on their demos, or if they have their personal boats with certain units on it that they prefer, and see if you can take that out on the water and try it out. When I went fishing last time with Jameson Redding, we went out there and he had the I think the Lowrance active target set up, live target. I don't know, active target. And man, that on the FS9 was a phenomenal setup. I would have never seen it otherwise. I had Raymarine at the time. Now I have 2 Garmin graphs. Don't get so caught up in worrying about what other people got on their boats. But if you got buddies that have different brands and different graphs on your boats, go try them out.
Yeah.
I think just leaving yourself room to expand in the future. It's kind of like what ties in with what Josh said. Is if you're brand new, the odds of you going out and throwing an active target or a live scope or something like that, probably not huge. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but just getting that initial graph. I mean, think about the user interface, the simplicity of it. If you're just learning, being able to dial in. Josh mentioned like the Lowrance systems, like look at something that's kind of expandable and something you can build on. And like the Elite series isn't very much money, and it's a really good value. You've got great side scan, down scan, and 2D. I mean, those 3 things are a must. That everybody just goes, yes, I need to have that. But having good access to mapping, is phenomenal. And that's when you start to fish lakes and things like that. Any of the big boat guys, everything will tell you first off is mapping is everything. And thankfully now all 3 major brands, Lowrance and Garmin and Humminbird have fantastic mapping. So I would leave room in your budget for one of those good, C-map chips or something like that you can get in the region that you're fishing. And really have that mapping capability. But other than that, I mean, really just the ability to upgrade so that you have, like an NMEA network port that'll allow you to put like a GPS puck on it or something like that in the future. Because that's really the best add-on is a GPS puck when you're starting. And then maybe even, the ability to go in and, still be compatible with forward-facing sonar units.
One of the things, we could spend hours just talking about units.
Yeah.
One of the biggest pieces, if you've gone to the point where you got your kayak, you've done the basic rigging, you're starting to look at fish finders and you're potentially looking at, entering some tournaments, whatever it might be, I would say go find your local group. If you got a kayak shop, talk to those guys, but also figure out who your local group is. Here in the DC metro area, we've got multiple groups around. And there's so many great folks out there that, if you come to a tournament, you can see guys rigging their stuff. But even if you try and go fun fishing, a lot of us will go pre-fish like the weekend before and ask people if you can tag along. Hey, what do you guys have? Let me check that out. Let's see how that works. I mean, so many of us, and the 3 of us have already mentioned it a couple of times already, are willing to show the items we have, how we've got our kayak rigged. Even if you're in the market and you want to try one out, and one of us has to reach out and find it. But the local groups, if you can get into those, the wealth of knowledge and the brains you can pick are unbelievable. I mean, I've learned so much from our local group over the 10 years that I've been involved with them, let alone the Jackson folks. Delaware Paddle Sports, my local shop, even some national folks, it's a wealth of knowledge to get into some of these groups and forums and pages and ask questions. Ask people if you can come hang out, go fishing, see what they got.
Good old-fashioned meetup. Okay, so we've kind of started about graphs. And Lance, you'd mentioned the Elite series from Lowrance, but I think if somebody's looking for, something good, they know that that's just entry level. They don't know quite how to read it yet, or different things like that. Lowrance even offers the Reveal series, which is it's got mapping, it's got side, it's got downscan, it's got all the gizmos that the Elite has. It's just a little lesser value unit, not touch screen, all the fancy bells and whistles, but it's something to kind of get you started. I think if you're a new kayak angler, it's a if you're looking to learn how to read and looking to learn the knowledge that goes behind them. Will it be your forever fish finder if you're serious? Probably not, but it's a great one to get you started. And the other brands have great ones to get you started too on a low budget.
Hey,
Just
Chad.
to add on to that real quick, Chad, is like if you
Yeah.
do get into like the hook, like the reveal series, and the lower end is if you find that great sale at your local shop, hopefully is where you're looking first,
Yes.
or you get on one of the big websites, is when you see that great sale come up on those, make sure that you really read down in there, newbies and,
Yes.
and read the description, because they do have units that still just have GPS, which will
Yep.
give you a gray screen with a line. You can drop waypoints on it and things like that, but it doesn't have
Right.
mapping that's not going to be compatible. So you guys
Yep.
out there, make sure that you read down there in the description and make sure that it has the map compatibility built into it, because they do have models that do not.
Yep. Make sure you hit that toggle too, because there will be different options, especially for like the 7-inch and 9-inch ones. There are different options as far as triple shot and the different things like
Yeah,
that. So
3-in-1,
definitely.
L-in-1, yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Transducer options.
Yep. So especially like if you're buying that from Bass Pro, because they do run a lot of sales on those kind of things, definitely watch what they're putting out there in front of you. So you've got your fish finder, you've picked that up. Next thing, I mean, the biggest thing that you're really going to need is a battery. Now I know we all four run different batteries and have different preferences, but how do you decide which battery is right with so many batteries on the market? You've got lead acid, you've got gel, you've got lithium. I mean, batteries alone can almost be as confusing as fish finders to find exactly what you need for your kayak in this day and age. Now, keep in mind, he's brand new to the sport. He doesn't have a motor yet, so he's looking for his first battery to power this new fish finder he bought. So, like, what's something that he maybe needs to look into? I mean, to find that new battery.
I mean, if you're just starting out and you're looking for the basics, a little 12 amp, like lawnmower battery, I think that's what a lot of us started with, and that'll power these units, for your day of fishing. And that's an easy item to pick up. It's pretty cheap. So that way, if you're not sure, if that road is for you, that's an easy and good way to go. I mean, if you can swing it because of the upgrades and the long-term lasting effect, I would say go lithium, because the weight is great. And congratulations, Mark Williams.
Yeah, congrats, man.
And
Great boat.
a lithium battery, the long term, the weight, the amount of time it runs units, those are a couple of things I would recommend.
Hey,
Oh,
you know,
there he is.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you blinked out there for a second. Go ahead, brother.
No, I was just gonna say, look at actual reviews, customer reviews on Amazon or Google reviews for the specific brands and batteries. If you go on a lot of the Facebook pages, you're gonna have people that, they swear up and down that it's the best battery in the world. But if you go read the reviews, they'll tell you otherwise. The proof's in that pudding in a lot of instances. Again, just like everything else in this community, ask the people around you, the more seasoned people that have spent time, have used the products, and have used them for a length of time. I personally recommend lithium just because of the longevity of them, and the reduction of weight. Because every pound counts when you're out on the water, right? But again, not everybody can afford a good lithium battery. So, if you are going for a cheaper lithium, really do your research, ask the questions, look at the warranties. That's another big one. Some of these companies say they have great batteries, and then you get it and it messes up on you in the first couple of trips out, and they say, "Oh, sorry," So really look into the actual warranty associated with the battery company. I think that's something that's overlooked a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm in the lithium camp firmly. I think it's 2024. it's kind of one of those, buy once, cry once. I started out with the Lowrance Hook 7, and the deer feeder battery and all that, like the old little guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if you run that thing bright, which you really got to do down here, especially in the South, a lot when it's dead of summer and you got the glare on your screen all day, which you always do. Having that extra juice available is key. So I think what I would say is to a brand new angler is get lithium. Get the lithium ion. There's a lot of questions and rumors and things like that about lithium batteries and water and things like that. 99% of those things going around on the internet are not true. I did an entire podcast of it with Stormy from Dakota a couple years back that's on my YouTube that really deep dives into battery technology. And there's a lot of other, podcasts and resources out there that can teach you a lot about those batteries. But I found that the more I fish throughout the years, being able to utilize that battery in other ways is what's really made a difference for me, So if it was somebody that's just coming into the shop and getting started, I'd probably drop them in a 10 amp hour, 12 volt, like the little Dakota lithium power box. It's like a little box. You can plug it right into a Yak power port or to your equipment inside the hull, and you can also take that thing out. You can use it on a job site to power your phone, or you can recharge your laptop, or use it driving down the road to whatever, power some stuff. And the power outages, it's winter season here in the South, which means our entire electrical grid's probably about to collapse. So, that little power box has lived next to my bed throughout the winters, so, if you need something to charge stuff up. So, multi-purpose, and that's kind of like really when it comes to lithium batteries. And when we get into talking about motor selection and things like that, that's where that becomes a thing, is being able to utilize that battery multiple ways, not just for running your graph on your boat, but running whatever you need at camp too.
Yeah, and that's great. The power box is an amazing tool to use, not only in your kayak, but for any of us that camp and kayak, or if you're doing a camp weekend trip, whether it's a Dakota power box, or there's a few other versions of those power boxes where you can drop a battery in yourself. They're amazing. Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to answer a question in the chat. Addicted Angler asked, he said, I just got a NAR. What's that?
Yep, I was going to throw that up there. I had started. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Yeah, he said that he just got a NAR, and I was wondering if the transducer cover affect the imaging. No, it does not. I haven't had an issue with it, at least. Maybe it's the material we use or what, but it shoots through just fine. I have the cover on my Coosa X and the one on my NAR, and I've never had an issue with side imaging or any of that. So
I'll tag on that from an install point of view, just because I've installed so many. When you are installing in that transducer cover underneath the NAR, or in any of these boats that have recessed transducer covers, make sure that you figure out a way to keep that thing level in there. So it's like I have a little 5/16 thread rod that sandwiches that transducer in there, but I always cut like a little thin layer of that heavy like foam block, like you get with a lot of kayak kits and things like that. I'll cut a really thin foam block, perfectly level, and then I'll put that up in the hull, and then sandwich that transducer up to it, and then the transducer cover comes up and like sandwiches it all together. So the biggest thing is, it's not going to affect your imaging. It stays wet, but you just want to make sure that you're not getting any, I'm trying to get lined up with my camera, any cant to the transducer like that, or, make sure it's nice and level in that hole. And think about the way you sit in your kayak when you're graphing too, because a lot of times when you get to running banks for a long time, you'll lean one way, or you'll kind of, when you are actively graphing, make sure that you keep that boat nice and level, and you've taught yourself how that boat runs.
That's good advice. That's good advice. I want to jump back on the battery thing here real quick. Lancey is talking about the batteries. I think the biggest thing is a lot of people today are not scared to jump on Amazon and just order something. I think that's where a lot of lithium batteries are safe. But you need to still do some research on a lithium battery before you just jump on Amazon. Don't just buy the first cheapest one you see on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's where you can get into some trouble. Definitely make
Alibaba.
sure you do
Yeah.
some research on a lithium battery. Make sure that the company's well rounded. Like Lance said, Dakota, Z Pro,
Yeah.
X2. There's a lot of good battery companies out there. Try to stick with one of those before
Yeah.
you run off and just buy something that's popping up cheap.
I always tell people.
That's the biggest thing.
I always tell people to look for a battery company that's had an issue. Because anybody that manufactures anything with those kind of components, there's going to be an issue at some point. So make sure that you're dealing with a company that, if they do have a bad run of, 60 amp hours or something like that, that they've gone through and they've replaced those and they've exhibited that customer service, and the company has still remained liquid after that. So a lot of times you'll get fly-by-night battery companies that are just getting Alibaba batteries, slapping stickers on them, some catchy, some catchy marketing, and then they go out there and then all these things are coming over on a boat, so they get one Connex container full of bad batteries, and that dissolves the company and everybody is hosed. So look for those companies. Dakota, absolutely just a rock in the industry. Z Pro has done great. Like you said, there's several brands out there that have really done fantastic. And I mean, really, man, if you're going to spend hundreds of dollars on a battery, spend $100 more, spend $150 more, and like buy once, cry once, and get one that isn't going to leave you stranded.
So, like Lance said, just watch some of those companies on Amazon before you go and buy the cheap battery. Make sure it's not just a sticker on a random product. Yeah, so we've got the battery. We've got everything going on. Johnny, or Susie, whatever you want to call our angler, has started off with all this stuff. Let's talk about fishing rod management. They started off with one or two rods. Typically how, that person that buys their first kayak, they're really starting to get interested in it. They've got the cheap fish finder, they've got the paddle, they're making headway, but now, man, it's like they're getting addicted. They've hooked that big fish and they're getting juiced. They want to get like, man, I need a crankbait rod. I've been on YouTube and man, so and so's channel, man, he's talking about cranking. Man, I need a jig rod. Man, I need this. How do you start to accommodate all these rods? I mean, like a kayak traditionally, like the Coosa X, you've got a great place for 4 internal rods. The big rig's got a place for, 6 rods that you can stage on the boat without any drilling. The Nar's got, you can put 8 on the Nar easy without, before you have to add any rod holders or anything like that. But something like the Bite, you've got a couple rod holders in the back behind you, the flush mounts. Where do you go from there? I mean, how do you get more rod storage? What are some of the things that you can do to add to your fishing arsenal when rigging your boat?
The easiest answer, I think, is any one of the storage crates. We've talked about Yak Attack and Yak Gadget. If you go find these crates, and especially some of these newer versions that they have, depending on what size of crate you get, will have, typically 3 to 4 rod holders that you can put on the back. I mean, adding, 3 to 4 on the back of there, plus, if you've got stand-up rod holders, or if you've got like the Nar and the Coosa X where you've got lay-down rod holders. I mean, if, honestly, I would say if you're new to the sport and you're just really getting into it, I mean, don't take more than 4 or 5 rods, period. Because if you're still getting used to things and you're still getting used to understanding, don't overcrowd yourself. But those resources like a Yak Attack or a Yak Gadget are wonderful companies that, you will see those names used constantly across the board, and they're easy. You don't have to drill anything. You don't have to screw anything into your kayak. throw a crate on there, add 3 to 4 rod holders, the blink of an eye.
Yeah, that's solid advice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say keep it simple. Don't take more than what you need out there, or that you're comfortable with having on your boat. And back to that kind of that tip about functionality. Can you reach them? Can you cast your rods without hooking something behind you? Right. So thinking about that when you're talking about rigging the kayak, where are you going to put those rod holders? If you're installing extra gear track, like I usually do that on the inside of the tank well, rear tank well on my bike. To give myself additional rod storage, I put rod holders on those. Well, I do that on the left hand side because I cast with my right hand. And I know I won't end up catching the rods, on that back cast. So super important to think about that kind of stuff, and will you be able to use it and have it be functional for you?
I would say the only thing I can add to either one of those guys is understand the difference between storage and functionality and utility. I mean, it's like if you've got a rod in storage, if it's back behind you and it's in that Yak Gadget crate or in that black pack, fine. Make sure it's in there. Make sure you can secure it if you need to. The rest is utility. Like what am I going to be using from cast to cast? I had that Yak Gadget rod stager off there on my left side because I tend to, work more off my right. I've got a comeback rod there. If I have a fish hit something and I need to grab, a wacky rig real quick and skip it in there, I can just trade those real quick, and flip that rod out there, and I've got a place to drop the rod that I was using. Those little angled rod pockets that are right behind the seat, the left-hand one, the only thing I use it for, that's where my camera boom goes. The right side, I leave that one open for utility for when I get a fish in the boat and I'm going to put it on the catch board and take pictures, having a place to just reach right there and drop a rod and have that rod up out of the way. You got an angry smallmouth or something like that you're wrestling in the boat. It's really nice to have that little spot right there where you can drop that rod in while you're getting that fish in, and get the lure out, toss it over the side, make sure you can reel it up with one hand. It keeps things out of your way while you're measuring that fish, because in that moment, the whole world revolves around getting a picture of that fish on that board, so having your boat set up and places for your rods to go is huge, and that's something I think you kind of learn with experience about how to lay it out. But I mean, touched on it earlier. I mean, just being able to secure those rods in that crate when they are in storage mode, or if you're in like sketchy mode, like if you come out of a creek and you get to the main lake and it's white capping and it's blowing and it's like kind of sketchy, man, turn around, get back in that creek, turn around real quick and put those bungees on your rods that are in the crate. Take a second and do that, and then go out there and then, I mean, the NAR, the big rig, a lot of the Jackson boats will take those waves just fine, but take a second before you go and make sure that you've got, some security options in those rod holders. Like when I'm running in my big rig, when I was running it, those rods would kind of lay in the gunnels. So I made shot cord loops that would attach to the seat rails that I could just slip over the butts of those rods, and I could take 2 or 3 of those tie downs and that would hold in like 8 rods, like if I wanted to go under a bridge or into the trees or whatever, I could bungee those things down real quick.
And we all get sloppy, I think, with our rods from time to, especially as the season wears on. I definitely get sloppy.
For sure.
I look like I've got everything laying on the deck at one time a lot of times. But yeah, take that time.
That's cost me $600 and $800 combos before. I've sank them.
I've just dropped rods. Like, you ever had that moment? This is off subject. You ever just had that moment when you're fishing and then just like all of a sudden it's like something in the universe causes you to just drop the stupid thing, and it's like
I've never done that. No.
Oh, I've done it like 3 times. I didn't miss any of the rods. It's just a good reason to buy a new one. Anyway, blonde moment.
I do like Adam's comment too. You put it up a second ago, multi-purpose rods. I mean, when you're first starting out, I mean, a couple, a spinning rod or two you can do a ton with, and then a couple of bait casters, because you can find a bait caster you can run a chatterbait, a spinnerbait off of, and don't be afraid to retie. If you're watching these videos with, Christine Fisher, or all of these top tier anglers that have been doing it a long time and have a system and understand every little in and out that they're doing it for their career, you'll see them carry 10, 12, 14 rods. But don't even consider that. Find a few rods that you can do a couple different things with. Don't be afraid to retie. Stop, retie. I mean, you got to do it every so often anyways to make sure your line's not nicked.
Oh, you should.
Don't be afraid to switch between a chatterbait and a spinnerbait, or, have a couple of rods you can do both with.
Well, and then the one thing that really made that possible for me to segue off that, Matt, is, on the Jacksons, that new underseat storage bag.
Oh my God.
Dude, like
so
life
awesome.
changing. I mean, like literally in my crate, my gadget crate in the back, I keep the big bags of all the different plastics in there, and I'll keep like my little terminal tackle boxes in there, and like my box of glides. But that underseat storage bag has literally changed my life. Once you get your organization system down, I've got like a hard bait, a soft bait, like a soft plastic, like quick grab box, and then I've got like a top water box, and they all live underneath there. And I've got that one box that you can kind of change out for whatever fishery. Once you start getting dialed in practice, it kind of starts getting the juice in that box, but man, having it right there under your feet, and just being able to reach down and pull that box out without having to twist around, there's no reason to not, retie, try. I mean, it is really, I think, probably tripled, the lures that I actively throw throughout a day, just because I don't have to stop and old and crippled, like twist around and get back in the box. And it's a really great add-on. So if you guys out there can figure out, if you've got a Jackson, get that Jackson underseat storage bag. That'll change your life.
Dude, I will wholeheartedly.
On the underseat bag, Josh, I know I'm going to start with you on this one, but I know you spend a lot of time in the JK group pages. You spend a lot of time answering questions for our Ask a Pro, and some of the different things like that we do. I know we get a lot of questions. Hey, I'm a bigger guy. I weigh this amount of weight. What are some of the things that I need to look at in a kayak? And balancing a kayak is a huge thing. And the underseat storage bag is a great way to start distributing weight throughout your boat.
Absolutely.
So you are using the whole boat and not just the tank well. Josh, can you kind of talk a little bit about some of those things for spreading the weight around and balancing those boats? Some of the questions that you get in the group pages and the Ask a Pros and all that. And we lost you, bro.
Can't hear you, buddy.
No. Nope.
Dang.
And Lance,
the button you can talk to. The weight distribution, man. Yeah, I actually did a video on that last year, with my NAR. Being very thoughtful about that. I mean, that goes back to everything we've talking about. Getting in there and riding in that boat, figuring out how it sits, figuring out where your seat's gonna go. Being able to move that weight around is key. If you're running a motor, that big heavy, 24 volt, 60 amp hour, the way that my 23 NAR runs, I'm going to put that battery up front. That brings my bow down a little bit. I get a little more punch as I'm going through. And then I'll run my electronics battery in the far back. I mean, it's really just, it's being thoughtful about how you lay your boat out, and if you can put weight across the board, do that, and don't be afraid to go out there and test it a few times. you don't have to get it right the first time. It's okay to go back and start over again, you know. So you know, get out there, and one of the big things that's kind of like change one thing at a time. You know, I think a lot of people will go out and be like, oh, I don't like this, or this didn't right, you know, or I felt a little front heavy or whatever. Think about what may be the problem, change that, then go out and try it. You know, if you change three different things, you could make it worse, or you can make it better and not know what made it better, you know. So it's just being very thoughtful about how you lay that weight out.
I'm back.
Yay!
Hey, remember the question, right?
Yeah. I mean, Lance kind of hit it on the head, man. Being very thoughtful about where you put your stuff in the boat. That underseat that bag by JK is phenomenal, and bringing that tackle weight forward. When you're thinking about that, think about some of your big baits. Like if you're throwing big swim baits, or you have a terminal box, your terminal box is usually going to weigh more than just about any other box in your boat. But the other thing is being very intentional about what you bring on your kayak. A lot of guys, especially those of us that came over from bass boats, they're used to tons of internal storage in a bass boat, and they try to bring every single piece of tackle they have with them on the kayak. Don't do
You
that.
don't need 36 jigs.
You'll literally throw. You're probably going to throw 2 or 3 baits the whole day, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're going out fun fishing and practicing, only take a few rods, figure out what you're going to use on tournament day if you are fishing tournaments, and then, you know, have it narrowed down. I don't ever bring more than 6 rods with me at any tournament, at least on the boat. I'll have extras in the truck, but I'll never bring more than 6 out there because it's extra weight. It's extra stuff to get, you know, caught up in trying to you know, use it all, right? Rather than really hammering down and figuring it out. As far as the weight distribution goes, you know, looking at where you're putting your batteries versus where your motor is. You know, I have an extension for the power of my Torpedo batteries. I can put it up on the front hatch if I'm riding real heavy in the back with a lot of tackle. Different things like that. Play with it. You know, go out again, just fun fishing, and see what configurations work best. You know, if you have a motor on there, you know, seeing when you distribute the weight differently in the kayak, how that translates to more efficient motor usage and speeds. These are all things that you'll kind of figure out as you go. But yeah.
Nice.
One little tip too, if you're struggling with your distribution, you know, there's 2 things you can look at. One, if you set the kayak in the water by itself and make sure it's not on any rock, land, boat ramp or anything, you kind of see where it sits. But if you got a buddy with you, get in the kayak, get in the water, get away from anything that'll hold it up, have them take a picture. You know, if it looks like the back end is sitting low or the front end is sitting low, you know, it's kind of a good, you know, indicator to give you an idea of where your weight's shifted to. And even sliding the seat forward, you know, if you're not on a pedal drive, if you have the ability to slide your seat forward or back a little bit, that can make a huge difference.
Hard to do on a pedal drive, but on the paddling boats where you got that trimability is great.
Well, I'll tell you, I like to ride with it heavy in the rear end, especially on the river, just because it gives me a little more maneuverability. But Matt will tell you, Matt and I fish together pretty frequently, and it looks like a hot rod taking off all the time when I'm on the river in the kayak. It's kind of funny, but it's functional for me. So you know.
I like being in a lot of the big lakes, big wide open lakes out here. You know, I kind of tend to do the same thing. I cheat a little bit more towards the back. But you know, one of the things that I wanted to add, because we've been kind of going more towards the new angler thing, one of the things that I see in a lot of the groups, like the DIY pages and things like that, when people start talking about weight distribution, one of the, I'll call it a mistake, because I just think that's what it is. A lot of new anglers kind of go, oh wow, they're doing this or they're doing that on the DIY pages, and they're, what's the best outriggers? What's the best what's the best that? Yeah. And man, let me tell you guys, if you're worried about what outrigger to put on your kayak, you've got the wrong kayak. Like you've got the wrong kayak. Like it's, let me say it again, you know, you've got the wrong kayak. There's literally no reason to have that on there. I mean, unless you have some sort of, you know, physical limitations or something like that you really need to do a lot of leaning one way or another. Man, keep away from stuff like that. That is something that fundamentally changes everything about that boat. And if you get in a boat that is really, truly designed and engineered by professionals and tested by professionals, that boat will run just fine with nothing bolted onto it. So if somebody tells you need an outrigger, like 99.999% of the time you do not. You know, like
No,
I'm old and fat and crippled, and I
actually.
can get in any of these boats and stand up in them and you know, turn around in them and do whatever I need to do in them. And I mean, it's and they're fine. So please keep away from that.
I want to answer this question from Caleb here real quick. Caleb, the Coosa FD for a grassy lake. Son, you've bought yourself a 4-wheel drive kayak. Little did you know. So the Coosa FD, any of the FD boats, is actually a phenomenal kayak for a grass lake, because what you have is the ability to set the pedals down and run in the open water. And then when you come up to a matted area or a heavy grass area in the lake, what you have the ability to do is flip that lever, flip that drive up, grab your paddle, and man, all of a sudden you've got 4-wheel drive, and you can go a lot of places without changing the deck on your boat that basically none of the other boats can go. I mean, without changing something in their layout on the deck, whether it's lifting the drive up or pulling the drive out. You know, with Jackson, all you got to do is flip that lever. You know, everything tucks up nice and neat underneath the boat. So, you know, it gives you a great option for fishing those grassy places like that. Or, you know, it'll let you run super shallow water too. I think that's one of the big perks to the Flex Drive. You can get it. You can run that dude just as low as you would a paddle boat, because with the flip of a wrist, or I use my foot to flip the lever, man, you can really get yourself in and out of some spots and get in some places where, you know, a lot of boats might miss. So yeah, you've basically bought yourself a 4-wheel drive kayak is the best way to look at it.
And the Coosa FD paddle's pretty good too. So
yes, it does. Paddles really well.
I was gonna say, yeah, like adding on to that, man. Any of the Jackson kayaks, what I always tell a lot of people at the shop is look, man, Jackson's born of whitewater, man. Jackson is born of paddling culture. Every single one of those holes out here, they really paddle like a dream. So, you know, fishing really grass heavy like I do, like, I mean, yeah, retracting that drive, that boat will straight just float over the nastiest mats you've ever seen. Great boat.
It's great for that. And yeah, I think echoing to all the boats paddle really well. We do spend a lot of time on that. And I'd recommend anybody that gets an FD boat, definitely spend some time paddling it, because you're going to be impressed with how well it paddles. The NAR actually paddles really well.
I love paddling my NAR.
Yeah. So, well, with that, guys, kind of an hour and 2 minutes here. So I'm going to let you guys sign off. We'll kind of close this thing out, but I want you to go around the room, thank the sponsors that you need to thank, the people that help you out every single day, and tell the folks where to find you on social media.
I'll kick it off. I want to say thanks first and foremost to the great family at Jackson. They take care of us, and we've all raved about the Jackson. And I see even comment even to that Mark IV drive is amazing. So thanks to Jackson. Thanks for having us. Delaware Paddle Sports, iRod, and P-Line, they help my year go all the time. Some great folks, you know, if you're in our region, Delaware Paddle Sports is an amazing Jackson dealer, and they can answer all your questions and take care of you. And as far as social media, at Volboy23 Instagram, and then Matt Campbell on Facebook. And feel free, you know, whether you comment on this post or reach out to any of us if you guys got questions, or hit up any of the Jackson pages. There's a million Jackson owner pages. You know, come by and comment, whether it's us or one of the many folks at Jackson or team members. They're more than happy to help you out, and hope to see you guys on the water.
Yeah, just want to say first, thanks to you, Chad, and for having us on. It's always a good time, man. Big shout out to Jackson Kayak, the whole Jackson family, really. Been with them for about a decade now, and always taking good care of me. iRod, P-Line, Bending Branches, Malone, Yakima, And Dakota Lithium, they all these different brands and companies, they work with me in various capacities and help me do what I do. If you're trying to find me on social media, look up Joshua Evans Fishing on Facebook or at Tight Lines Sharp Minds on Instagram, or come out to any of our Mid-Atlantic kayak bass fishing events. You can find more information about us at mkbf.com.
All right. Yeah, mine is Lance McWhorter Fishing, or my shop, ETX Paddle Sports. You just look up ETX, like East Texas Paddle Sports. Man, thank you, Chad, again for having me on and for all that you do for us and the brand and the community. You know, sponsor-wise, Jackson Kayaks, so super proud and honored. I love that family. Dakota Lithium, Missile Baits, Dobbins Rods, you know, Newport Vessels, Striker, Amphibia Eye Gear, Traeger Grills. I am a chef after all, you know, Bubba, you know, there's just so many great people that help keep me going. And I truly appreciate you guys. If you guys want to come out anywhere in East Texas, let me know. You're happy to use one of my boats or test it out and take it for a drive. And I'll see all you guys out there. I do the Bassmaster Kayak Series, so I'll be at all the events this year and at the Classic for sure. So thank you.
Yeah. Yep. And without further ado, we're going to thank the fine folks at Jackson Kayak for providing us a platform to do this podcast. Also, Orion Coolers. This all airs on the Orion Podcast Network. You know, Spotify, all that fun stuff. So you can check it out after the show if you missed us on the lives. We've got Evolve Rod Sleeves. We've got a 15% discount on that. Hit up JKT15 and you can save yourself a little bit of money on some rod sleeves. They're not bad. They're not bad at all. Z-Pro Lithium keeping us powered here at the Orion Podcast all year long. The fine folks at Garage Beer for providing beer for the Orion Podcast. We appreciate the heck out of that. So we're going to give them a shout out. Cast King Rods and Reels, they have been awesome. And also the fine folks at Basco Fishing. Go check out Basco, get you some swag. You will enjoy it. It's all custom, new stuff coming out every few months. And yeah, Chris over at Basco, he's a good dude. So hit him up, get you some fresh fishing threads for spring. So that does it for the crew tonight. We appreciate you guys all being here, hanging out with us for a little bit. Happy first podcast of 2020, 24 for all of us. So we're a little rusty. It's been a few weeks. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Joe.
I got hit in the stream.